Welcome to Live by Design. I am your host, Muadi. I'm a life strategist, a motivational speaker, and a coach, and I am here to provide you with program content that hopefully you will find to be insightful, inspiring, and informative. We are on a mission, you and I, to up-level and upgrade our lives. Our intention is to bring more peace, more joy, more love, more abundance into our own circle, into our own space, and start to be an example for other people of what it means to really be living on purpose, to have your life going on all four cylinders. That's our intention. That's our goal. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2012. It's already the second full week of January. I am really curious to know how it's going for those of you who made New Year's resolutions. So please, if you get a chance, send me an email at mdabinga@muadiunlimited.com and let me know how things are going. I say it every year. I'm not a big fan of the resolutions, but I do believe in using the momentum of the new year to set some goals and try to make some things happen. So if you've taken an opportunity and you're trying to ride that wave, send me an email. Let me know how it's going. Today, we're talking about one of my most favorite topics, which is that of authenticity. I believe it's been my experience and my observation that so many people are today living a lie. Living lies. We are not being truthful with ourselves. We're not being truthful with one another about our wants, our needs, about who we are, about our true core values. And it's gotten to the point, I feel like it's an epidemic, because it's gotten to the point where people, it's almost become a cultural phenomenon, right? Where we are all living, not all of us, but there's a good portion of people who are walking around not being truthful about what is really going on in their lives. And instead of being their true self, and instead of living from their own core values, they are saying things that they don't mean, making decisions to do things that they don't really want to do, walking in a way that doesn't really fit well for them, that's not really true for them, all in an effort to get approval or to get favor or to get something from someone else. There are a big group of us, it's a really significant number of us who are walking around and not really living the purpose and intention that was meant for us, but instead are trying to live to please other people. And we are going to talk about that today. Now, before we get to that topic, I do have to share a little light bulb moment that I had in my own life last week. I tend to tell people, I like to encourage people to listen to what their lives are saying to them. And that whenever you find yourself in a situation where someone has hurt you or is doing something that doesn't really feel good to you in terms of how they're treating you, how they're talking to you, or any aspect of the interaction that doesn't work for you, I always suggest that you look at that as an invitation for a conversation, rather than just sort of cutting people off, willy-nilly and random. I got an invitation to a conversation last week. I'm in Boston right now, and last week I was downtown and I bumped into the uncle of a good friend of mine who I've known for over 20 years. We met shortly after I got out of college, worked together briefly, and during the time that we worked together, formed a really strong connection. Really similar family backgrounds and histories. We have a really similar focus when it comes to politics and that type of thing. We never dated, so it's not one of those he done me wrong stories. That's not what we're talking about. But we were really good friends for a long time. Talked about relationships and gave each other advice and all of that. So imagine my surprise when Uncle told me that my friend got married. Muadi did not get a text, an email, a phone call, smoke signals, nothing. And at the time when I was told that he had gotten married, I got really upset internally. Now, the great thing about reflective consciousness is now that I'm older and I'm more mature, I don't, go off and let all my emotions just sort of spill out all over the place. I'm truthful, but I'm also, I try to walk with some grace and some dignity. So I didn't say too much. I was friendly. I listened. But as soon as we parted ways, I felt myself being overcome with this emotion that I really couldn't put my finger on. And it took me a couple of minutes to really delve into it. And then I was hurt. I was hurt. This is somebody who I thought was a good friend, who at the very minimum would at least let me know. You don't have to invite me. I'm cool with that. But at least, you could let somebody, let me know. So I sent a little text, a very nice text, I thought was a nice text, and basically said, wow, my invitation must have gotten lost in the mail, using that, knowing him a little bit, as an opening for the conversation. And what I got back solidified for me that this relationship had come to a natural end, because the response that I got back was, you know me, I didn't invite anyone. Needless to say, I wasn't really pleased by that response. As a matter of fact, I found that response even more hurtful than the act itself, because it did not recognize and did not respect the feelings that I was sharing, what I was trying to say in terms of the fact that I wanted to have a conversation about this. I felt like it sort of cut the conversation at the knees. And what's interesting is that several years earlier, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the exact same thing happened to me with another friend of mine. College friend, again, we didn't date, but very, very close, very, very close. And he fell off the grid for a couple of years, popped back up, announced he had gotten married. I expressed to him, I was like, wow, what happened to my invitation? And in that case, he apologized, not for getting married. He was proud of what he had done, believed he had done it in a way that really fit his needs and the needs of his wife. But he did apologize for doing something that I interpreted as being in violation of or disrespectful of our relationship, and asked for my forgiveness. Not for forgiveness for getting married, but he asked me for my forgiveness for doing something that I experienced as being hurtful. Now, come on. How could I stay mad at that? Now, I was still a little hurt about not being there because I wanted to be there for my friend. But I was able to respect the fact that he made a decision that was best for him at that moment. And although it wasn't in alignment with what I wanted, I had to respect that as my friend. The forgiveness path was clear for me when I saw that he recognized that I was hurt. He acknowledged my feelings and apologized. Unlike that other person who was like, oh, well, you know how I do, that kind of mentality. So in the second instance, not only was there forgiveness, there was a deepening of the relationship, because going through that crisis, going through that and coming through on the other side really allowed us to connect in a way that we hadn't before. That was the first real major hurdle in our relationship. And I'm proud to say, I'm happy to say that today we're just as close as we've ever been. Whereas that other one, as soon as I really settled into the knowledge of what had really transpired, I deleted his phone number, deleted his email, and unfriended him off of Facebook, because I remember that old saying, don't put a comma where God put a period. In the second situation, where there was an apology, where there was an acknowledgement of the hurt feelings, and a real willingness to sort of reconcile and work things out, I was able to grow through that. So that was a comma. That was a pause in our relationship, and the sentence continued. In this other situation, where there was not only there was no acknowledgement of what I believe to be the truth of our relationship, in that situation, we put a period on the end of that. And the reason that I know I'm comfortable with that, because, I don't like to, as I'm always saying, I don't like to cut people off. But there does come a time when we have to give people their exit papers. And I know my gut tells me that that was the right thing to do. And I got confirmation from that evening when I went to write in my journal. Because instead of writing this long paragraph about how this person did me wrong and etc. and hurt my feelings, I just wrote, such and such is married, period, moving on. And I felt peace. No anger, no upset, but real peace, because someone showed themselves to me. Someone put our relationship under a spotlight. I didn't like what I saw, and I made a change. Whereas an invitation for a conversation, that was mine, and I RSVP'd in a huge way. Your life is talking to you. So if you're going through something right now, you're experiencing someone right now who's treating you in a way that gives you pause, answer the call. Answer the call and see what comes to pass. We're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back, we are going to jump into this conversation about authenticity, playing roles. Who are you? Who are you? What really is important to you? How are you living in this life? And where is there room for you to really step further into yourself and bring the truth of who you are to all your relationships? That's what we're talking about. We will be right back after this short break. by Design. I'm your host, Muadi and today we're talking about authenticity. Now, before we delve completely into this, I don't want to dive right into this conversation without being really clear about what it means to be authentic. This is a word that is getting bounced around so much these days, almost to the point of nauseam, because it's becoming a cliche, because everybody's talking about, oh, I want more authentic love, and they're not really being authentic, and they're so fake. But what does it mean? So, in order for us to make sure that we're all operating from the same page, and to provide a little bit of a context, I went into the dictionary, to Webster's itself, to come up with a working definition that we could use so that we're all talking about the same thing, and so that we can make sure that we have real clarity and we're not making assumptions. So according to Webster's, the definition of being authentic means to be genuine, true, real, original, sincere, unaffected, or natural. I'll say that one more time. To be authentic, according to the dictionary, is to be genuine, true, real, original, sincere, unaffected, or natural. Let's note what it did not say when it comes to being authentic. It did not say being high drama. It did not say being rude. It did not say that being authentic meant to be crass and to be hurtful and to be ignorant of other people's feelings. Because sometimes when we think about this notion of being authentic, we get into this idea of it means to keep it real and say what's ever on our mind, no matter who it hurts, because we're going to talk about the truth no matter what the outcome is and what the other outcome impact is on other people. And that's not true authenticity. True authenticity is what we said initially. It's being original, it's being natural, it's being unaffected, but being so with grace. I found a definition, a broader definition that I want to read to you now, that I found on the website of a woman by the name of, a doctor actually, named Athena Stock. And she wrote an article called The Ultimate Gift, Giving the Gift of Being Authentically You. And Dr. Stalick writes, authenticity is the permission you give yourself to be real, to be who you are, aware of warts and graces. This permission frees you to give and to live in relation to yourself and others, especially key others, from a place of love and not fear. Now, let's think about this. I want to break this down a little bit. When I was younger, even up into my mid-20s, I really struggled with this notion of being myself because I felt there were parts of me that I had to hide because they weren't in an alignment with what my public persona was. I started my early career as an activist, as an organizer, and I come from a family that has a long history of social activism. And so I felt, nobody ever told me this, I felt that in order to really fit that role, there were certain things about my personality, certain things about my likes, my dislikes, my tastes that I had to hide. So for example, I did not think it was consistent with the image of being a radical activist to play the classical violin, which is something that I did for several years as a child. I am also, as a dancer, I love classical ballet. I'm more contemporary ballet now, but there was a time when I really loved classical ballet and classical music, certain types of foods. But because nobody told me this, but because I interpreted those tastes, because I interpreted those desires as not being consistent with the image of a social activist, I completely hid them. And I never let anybody even know those aspects about me. And so I would meet people. As a matter of fact, I went out with somebody once. Now his name I'm not going to mention. Who was attracted to the persona. You know, we're out and going to these community meetings again in Boston, and he was like, oh, she's just a radical person, etc., etc. And then when we got together, I didn't want to talk about politics. I didn't want to talk about, what was going on at the meeting. I wanted to talk about, there was a range of things that I wanted to talk about, and I just did not find this person to be interesting. And he didn't find me to be interesting either, because he was attracted to a persona. He was attracted to an image that I was actively creating for myself to fulfill a particular agenda, but not the real me. And when we sat down at that table and tried to make a soul-to-soul connection, it was not possible. It just wasn't possible because I wasn't being real and he was not attracted to the real Muadi Dibinga, and therefore it just didn't go anywhere. And that was a pattern that repeated a lot in my life. I remember when I was in college, first time being away from home, lived a relatively sheltered life before I went away to college. I didn't go out that much and all this other stuff. And so by the time I got to college, I didn't engage in a lot of the activities that seemed to be prevalent among social circles. I didn't drink, smoke, and I didn't do drugs, and I didn't, and I wasn't, hanging around, we'll put it that way. And so to cope, I didn't engage in any of those behaviors because they just didn't speak, they just were not consistent with who I am and what I wanted to do. I'm not preaching. If you have a drink every once in a while or whatever, that's fine. That's your business. That's not what I'm talking about. That's just not something that I do in my own personal life. And so when I got to college, it wasn't my intention ever to engage in that kind of behavior, and I was really proud of that. But what did I start doing? I started cussing. I was not a big cusser before I got to college. And in retrospect, in hindsight, I was able to see that that was something that I was trying to do to curtail the nerdiness of what was perceived as being nerdy because of all these other things that I did not do. So again, that was me intentionally taking on a habit in order to manipulate a response, a perception from other people. I wanted to be seen as being down. I was, again, very active politically and very active socially, so people saw that piece of me. But there was this whole other package or whatever of behaviors that I was not going to engage in that really isolated me and kept me from being considered one of the cool people, or so I thought. Come to find out, nobody was fooled. That's a conversation for another time. But the point is that I did not feel comfortable enough with who I was. I thought I was comfortable when I was home with my family, among other people, my AAA team, my family, who also had the same type of values and ideology and sort of core values, right? But when I got to college, and that wasn't quite the case, I was sort of like a fish out of water. And so while there were certain things that I knew in my core, down to my toes, that I was just not going to do, this other bad habit sort of creeped in, and it wasn't until a lot later that I found out that I was doing that to elicit a response from other people. That's what it means when we're not living an authentic life. This is my definition of what it means not to be authentic. When you engage in a behavior, when you make choices with a hidden agenda to get a particular response from someone else, whether it's love, whether it's adoration, whether it's appreciation, whether it's support, when you behave in a way that you know is not consistent with your true desires, your true needs, your true core values, for the sole purpose of manipulating someone else into responding to you in a certain way or seeing you in a certain way, you are not living an authentic life. Period, bottom line, that's it. And we do it, sometimes we do it consciously and sometimes we do it subconsciously. It's that person who always wants to, I'm going to give you a ride, give people rides all the time. You could be going north and somebody wants a ride going 50 miles south and you agree to take them because you want to be seen as a good person. You can be someone who's a parent who has children and you're sacrificing them 24/7 to the point of exhaustion on your part because you want to be seen as a good parent and you want your children to love you. You could be someone, excuse me, who's in a relationship someone and doing everything for that person, driving him or her around, picking up his or her laundry, integrating yourself into the family to the point of you're losing yourself and maybe not spending time with your friends and not spending time in your own relationships because you're trying to get something from this situation so you can torture yourself into being someone who you are not. That's what it means to be unauthentic. As a matter of fact, let's look at this a little further because Dr. Steak on her website, and I'm going to put these resources up on my Facebook page for you just so that you have them for a future reference. But there's a couple of questions. She has a quiz, and there are a couple of things that she asks readers that she offers to her readers as sort of a test to determine whether or not there's space in your life to bring in more authenticity. Let's look at what some of them are. She asks, do you find it difficult to stand up for yourself? Do you tolerate hurtful or sarcastic comments out of fear or worry? Do you say yes to things you do not want to do and then resent it later? Now that used to be a big problem of mine, to be honest. Do you feel that others must be shamed or intimidated to do what is right? Do you avoid rocking the boat to avoid conflict, avoid conflict, or do you feel that rocking the boat is the only way to get done? And that's what I find to be really interesting, because they're two extremes. One is that person who we might call passive, who doesn't want to rock the boat, who wants to avoid conflict. That's somebody who's not authentic because they don't speak up for themselves when they need to, when they're being disrespected, when they're being treated poorly, because they don't want to rock the boat, because they don't want to lose somebody's love, they stay in silence. Then there's the other extreme of someone who feels that what did she say? That the only way to get things done is to rock the boat. That was Muadi. That was me. High drama. Walk in with a chip on your shoulder, ready to do battle. That's not authentic. Those two extremes are not authentic. Let's look at some more for questions. Do you say what you want, when you want, and how you want to say it? That's not someone who's authentic. Why? It's not the saying what you want. It's how do we say it? How do we communicate? Again, using myself as an example. I don't mind using myself as an example because, some of this behavior I've evolved past. Some of it, still a work in progress. In any event, I'm here to share with you so you don't make the mistakes that I made. That used to be my modus operandus. Walking in, saying what I felt like, being high drama, confronting people because I felt like that was keeping it real. And somebody has a skit out there that's called Keeping It Real Gone Bad. And that's an example of keeping it real gone bad. I remember when I was on the radio, I was being interviewed and someone called in and we were talking about authentic, and I asked the caller, how are you today? And he said, well, I'm feeling a little constipated right now. And he was saying, because people are always saying, how do you feel? And we say fine, and we don't always have to say we're fine. So he took it to the other extreme, thinking that I needed to know all his business. What's my point? The point is this. Whenever you are engaging in a behavior or saying something to get a reaction. So in the caller's example, he was saying something to elicit a response from me, to sort of shock me. Or when we try to do things for people to like us and all these, to love us, we're being unauthentic, and it keeps us from making a soul-to-soul connection. There are a lot of downsides to people-pleasing behavior. There's so many downsides to engaging in a way that does not reflect what you really think, but also not walking with your true, authentic grace. And when we come back from this next break, we're going to keep talking about, I want to go down this list because there are a few more questions that she asks that help us determine whether or not we're being inauthentic. And then we're going to go and talk about some of the ways that being inauthentic, being not truthful with who we are, can really have a negative impact on our relationship. And don't worry, before the close of the show today, we're also going to talk about some steps that you can take to bring more authenticity into your own life, okay? So we're going to take a short break. We're back. We are talking today about, well, again, my favorite topic, authenticity. What does it take for us to truly be ourselves, show the truth of who we are into the world, and really make soulful connections, real connections with other people based on who we are as opposed to an image or a role that we're playing in life. Before the break, I shared with you some tips and some questions that Dr. Athena Stake asked on her website. She's a PhD who studies this type of work. And again, this information will be on my Facebook page, so you can actually have a link to the full article and ask the questions, take the quiz yourself to find out where you stand in terms of this whole idea about being authentic. But going backwards a little bit, in her article, she talks about the importance of being able to really be yourself from a place of love and dignity and grace, as opposed to operating from a place of fear or anger or judgment. I'm adding the term judgment because I feel that anger and judgment have a tendency to go hand in hand. There are a couple of more questions that she asks in the article that I think are worth checking out. She asks you to ask yourself, do you worry about what people are thinking of you? Do you take what people say to you or about you personally, do you think that you must please others to feel okay and feel not guilty? What I find interesting is that at the core of these questions, at the core of the values that she's trying to sort of put forward, is this underlying theme about just not feeling good enough. Not feeling good enough. When we hide who we are, when we try to manipulate other people to respond to us in a certain way, by adapting behaviors that are not consistent with who we are, by adapting ideologies and making statements and doing favors, doing anything that does not reflect the truth of what you really want, it really is a reflection of low self-esteem on our part. We don't think that we're enough. We don't think that we're enough, so that we create a persona, we create an image that we think is more worthy of love. The drawback to that type of behavior, operating in that sort of, from that modality, is, well, actually there are many, many drawbacks, and there are actually too many for us to even go into in this short program. So I do want to highlight a few of them. The first thing is that whenever we tell other people, by virtue, whether it's through our direct words or through our actions, when we tell other people that we are not good enough, it reinforces that message to our subconscious. It reinforces that thought process internally. We absorb that. Each time we act it out is a reinforcement of that belief internally. And as a result of that, this message that we're not good enough keeps us from going after things that we really want in life. It keeps us from taking risks. It keeps us from having the confidence to pursue a relationship or to even be open to being vulnerable to having a relationship. It keeps us from going after a job that we might really, really want, but maybe we don't really think that we're qualified, or maybe we don't think, despite the fact we might have the technical credentials, maybe we don't think that we have the wherewithal to carry out that work. Whenever you engage in something that reinforces your low self-esteem, it's going to manifest in other parts of your life. So if you tell yourself that you really want to become physically fit, deep inside, you don't think that you, right now, who you are is enough. So you're going to sabotage yourself. You are not going to really reach that particular goal, or any goal for that matter, as long as you're operating from this place of not feeling like you, by yourself, because you are here, are worthy. So whenever we manipulate others by taking on the role of being the goody two-shoes, by taking on the role of being the drama queen, by taking on any other role, we're telling that person, and therefore telling ourselves, I do not think that who I am in this world right now is enough to elicit the love, the respect, the genuine caring from this person or from this group of people that I want. So therefore, I'm going to change who I am, and then hopefully we'll get what I want. The problem with that is twofold. One is that the people who respond to you in that way, they know that they're being manipulated somewhere, maybe not at the surface, but somewhere in their own subconscious. They can recognize in their gut, in their intuition, that they're not making a soul connection with you, that you're not really being truthful about who you are and what you want. And so therefore, that respect that you want, that real caring, that real loving that you want, it's not forthcoming. Because even if you can get somebody, say you try to make somebody love you, or you want to wear somebody down to the point that they want to be in a relationship with you, even if that comes to pass, that person knows at the subconscious level that he or she has been manipulated, and therefore the chances of it really lasting for the long term are very short. You, being someone who got somebody to love you or be with you or be in a relationship with you as a result of manipulation, you know at your subconscious level that it is not a genuine soulful connection, and you will continue to have that feeling because there's no escaping that truth. And as a result of that, you will engage in behavior that sabotages that, because you know deep inside that the only reason that the person is even with you is because of things that you did that were not in line with your true nature. So you are not having a soulful connection. So there are at least two things that we've already identified, two really negative factors, two negative outcomes that result from not being yourself. One is that it reinforces in your mind, in your subconscious, that you are not good enough. Thereby it short circuits your ability to really go out and live a life and get those things in life that you really want, because you don't think that you deserve them. You don't think you're capable of getting them. Secondly, it shuts you down. It keeps you being in inauthentic, not being yourself, does not allow you to have real soulful, real connections with other people. We don't get people into our lives. We don't attract people based on who we are. We attract people based on who we want them to think we are. And when they get to know us, 9 times out of 10, they leave. Whether it be a friendship or a relationship, a professional relationship. When people come to you and they want to relate to you on a certain level based on who you present to the world, if that's not really you, the truth will out. And eventually you will end up destroying or self-destructing. You'll either self-destruct or destroy that relationship. So, what do we do? What do? We define what it means to be inauthentic. We've defined what it means to be authentic. Now, and we know what the problems are that come from not living a life that's true, that's genuine, from not being sincere, from not honesty, from a place of love and grace and self-confidence, being able to articulate our wants, our likes, and our dislikes. We know how that can impact us. And so now what? What do we do? How do we get from this place from being someone who does not necessarily bring out, is not honest about who you are because maybe you're afraid or maybe you have a hidden agenda? How do we transition from being that kind of person to being somebody who is who they are, who's truthful about what their likes are, truthful about what your dislikes are, but able to express themselves and articulate that from a point of grace and dignity? The first thing you have to learn how to do, I suggest, is learn to say no. Learn to say no. There's a wonderful spiritual teacher by the name of Eckhart Tolle, and if you follow this program, you will hear me talk about him a lot. He wrote a book called The New Earth. And in The New Earth, he offers this concept of what he calls a quality no. And a quality no is a no that is said with no guilt, no angst, no manipulation. So it can be something as simple as, Muadi, do you want to babysit tonight? No, I don't. Are you available to give me a ride? No, I'm sorry, I can't. Not feeling guilty, not feeling badly, but being able to really articulate when something does not feel good to you without the worry and the baggage that the person who is on the receiving end of that no is somehow going to leave you and abandon you. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to practice it. I talk about this a lot. Any type of faith, self-confidence, spiritual strength comes from exercising those muscles. It comes from utilizing them. So there's no magic pill that you can take that's going to wake you up. You know, you're going to wake up one day and be like, now I can say no, now I have all this confidence. It just comes from the practicing. Practice setting boundaries. Practice being yourself. Remember, sometimes I hear people say, people are going to take my kindness for weakness and they're going to take advantage of me. And for a long time, I felt that way too. I felt that if I wasn't strong 24/7, and if I in any way let down my armor, that people were going to take advantage of me. But I found out something very interesting, which I believe to be true, which I know to be true. People can't take advantage of you unless you allow them to. They can't. And if you have the intelligence, if you have the self-confidence, you know that if a situation arises where you have to take care of yourself, where you have to handle your business, where you have to advocate for yourself, if you know that you can take care of yourself when you need to, that when you need to call upon that strength, when you need to call upon that resolve, that it's available to you, then you don't have to walk around with a chip on your shoulder. You can be nice. You can be loving. You can be kind. And yes, there's some people out there who might see that as being weak or as being soft, but that's not your spiritual business, what they think of you. There might be people out there who think, oh, she's a goody two-shoes, she's always trying to be nice. Oh, that's not your spiritual business. What other people think about you is not your spiritual business. You are responsible for maintaining your own consciousness force field. You are responsible for living a life that reflects the grace, the beauty, and the divine that is already within you. Nobody can take advantage of you if you don't give them the permission. And when we learn to say a quality no, when we're able to say what feels good to us, what does not feel good to us, without any emotion, without any drama, being able to say so from a point of love, dignity, and grace, then you start to feel better about yourself. And what other people think about you no longer really becomes your concern. It's not your concern. And what that allows you to do is to really be yourself and be open. And have confidence in yourself that if somebody does betray you, or hurt your feelings or does something that is not consistent with what you believe to be the relationship that you had with this person, you have the confidence in yourself to know, I will be all right. I might be sad for a minute. I might miss this person. I might mourn the loss of this particular relationship or situation or job, but I know that I will be okay. And having that confidence in yourself to know that come what may, you might fall down for a second, but you know you're going to bounce back up. That frees you to be you. It frees you. So when we think about it, how do we get to that place where we can be authentic, where we can be loving, where we can be open? We detach ourselves from the feeling that other people's opinions of us are our spiritual business. What they say about you, what they think about you, has nothing to do with you. So we go forward with confidence, knowing that I am free to be me. Somebody may not like me. Somebody may think I'm weak. Somebody may think I'm easily taken advantage of. That's fine for them to think whatever they want to think about me, whatever they want to think about you. As long as they stay out of your consciousness force field, you're good. So this whole notion of I have to be strong so people won't treat me A, B, or C, cut it out. Cut it out, because it doesn't serve you. This whole notion that I have to be bending over backwards and doing things for people so that they can really love me, cut it out. It doesn't serve you. Unconditional love means there's no strings attached to it. I don't have to do anything to earn it per se. Now, of course, there are contractual agreements, there's social agreements. We want to have mutual love and we have mutual respect. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about I have to give you a ride every time you need one, or I have to lend you money, or I have to do and give you these tangible material things. Otherwise, I will lose your love. I will lose your affection. That's not real friendship. That's not a soulful connection. So when I talk about people caring about you for you, if they love you because you're kind, because you're compassionate, because you have a good sense of humor, for your personal qualities, not necessarily for the tangible things that you do for them. So that is our goal, that is our intention, to move towards being more authentic and stop playing games and stop playing roles. There's another spiritual teacher by the name of Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, who is the spiritual director of the Agape International Center in California. And he has this saying that whereby he says that you can either be a character, have character, or be a caricature. When you have character, that's somebody who keeps their word, somebody who has a good moral fiber, you're dependable, you're somebody who has integrity about yourself. When you are a character, you're somebody who's maybe a little bit entertaining. I can sometimes be a character because I can tell a story. I can make people laugh, and I can be very colorful in the way I speak, and I can be a little bit of a character. I can be a fun person to be around when I choose to. But then there's that piece, the third piece, being a caricature. And a caricature is an exaggerated form of who you are, a persona that you take on for the pure soul entertainment and manipulation of others. That's what a caricature is. If you've ever gone to New York or Times Square or an amusement park and they draw a caricature of you, it's you, but it's really exaggerated features so you can barely really recognize it. Your face is in there, but for the most part, it's this big, again, exaggerated picture of who you are. When we're living unauthentically and we pretend to be somebody that we're not in order to get something from someone, whether it's a material thing or an emotional support, we become caricatures. And if we're not careful, we lose ourselves in that character. We lose ourselves in that caricature to the point that we don't know who we are anymore. Some of us, we become teachers, and that becomes our entire persona. And we can't separate the role of being a teacher from the role of being just an individual. Sometimes those of us who are parents, and I think being a parent is a very high calling, but it's not the totality of who you are. But if you become so absorbed in your parenting, when that child or those children are no longer in need of you, you're walking around, you don't know who you are anymore. That's not authentic living. Playing roles, doing things to get gains from other people does not serve us. So we talked about some of the questions that you can ask to determine whether or not you are living authentically. And again, those questions are going to be up on my Facebook page in the next couple of days for reference point. We talked about some of the drawbacks to being an unauthentic person and living for other people. To me, the most egregious of those drawbacks is the fact that you don't get a soul connection. because you have all these fake people running around having relationships with fake people, which explains, I think, why a lot of marriages and relationships don't last, or why they're not based on anything really substantial, because you have actors and actresses coming together trying to create real lives, and that just does not work. And another really serious negative side to living unauthentically is that it reinforces this message internally that you're not good enough just as you are. And it's not to say that we don't do self-improvement, we don't try to, improve ourselves on a regular basis. That's not what I'm saying. But when you feel that who you are is not enough to be loved, when you feel that who you are is not enough to be respected, and you go out and try to manipulate others by being somebody else, that reinforces that low self-esteem, that lack of self-appreciation, that lack of self-love internally. And there's nothing positive that can come out of that. I want to leave this topic with a quote. I found a blog online, and I just want to pull it up. And it's called, a blog written by this gentleman. It's called Authentic Living. And again, this is also going to be a resource that I offer for you on my Facebook page. And he says, you will find that as you express who you are authentically, you will attract people who will respect and admire and love you for who you are. One thing about a person who always expresses who they are is that the people around them always know where they stand. In the long run, this is always better. It is always better than never knowing what the person talking to you really feels. We want to have soul connections with the people in our lives. We want to be recognized, appreciated, and loved for who we are. That's our deepest desire, one of our deepest desires. But the only way that that's going to happen is, in fact, if we present the truth of who we are. So we want to make sure that going forward, you do a couple of things. One is, I'm telling everybody, you got to develop some kind of spiritual practice. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm hoping that if I say this enough, people will start to really get what I mean by that, which means a ritual that you do, whether it's journaling, dancing, yoga, whatever it is, that allows you to tune out from the external world and tune inside and listen to your spirit, listen to your gut, make that connection, time out of the matrix so that you can rejuvenate and recuperate from all of the noise and all of the madness that comes out into this world, that comes with being in this world, I should say. Practice the art of articulating your feelings. At the top of the hour, I shared with you how I had an opportunity last week to respond to an invitation for a conversation. And I was able to really articulate for myself why this particular relationship needed to come to a close. It didn't feel good to me. It was not what I thought it was. It was not what I wanted it to be. And I was not willing to have that kind of energy in my life. It's not something that I would have been able to do with as much grace, several years ago. It's taken a little while for me to get to this place. But my point is that there was an opportunity for me to either stay in relationship with this person in a really unauthentic way, or just, to be honest, just kick the whole thing to the curb and make space for more love and more expansion with people who really want to connect with me in a way that I want to connect with them. That's what it means to be authentic, to be honest, but with dignity, with grace. We don't necessarily have to wear all of our hurts on our sleeve to be considered to be authentic, because in that way we're also doing some manipulation. Sometimes we do that to get sympathy or to get empathy, right? So it's not about letting your whole life be an open book per se. You have to have discernment. We have to use a little bit of common sense and some restraint at times to recognize when, where, and how to share the truth of who we are with other folk. When is it appropriate to share, and when is it more appropriate to sort of sit back and listen? But the point is that whenever you open your mouth and whenever you engage with another person, make a commitment that is going to come from a truthful and honest place. And it takes time. It takes practice. Nobody wants to be laughed at. Nobody wants to be isolated. Nobody wants to be talked about. But the reality is, no matter what you do, someone's going to talk about you anyway. So give them something really juicy to talk about. Let them talk about how authentically you're living. Okay? Now, before we close, I do want to have a couple of events that are coming up. I will be in Boston on Saturday, February 18th for Women's Worth. Discover Your Purpose, Unleash Your Power. It'll be taking place at Roxbury Community College. And then on April 21st, I will be having my first half-day retreat. In order to come to the half-day retreat, you must have participated in one of the Women's Worth workshops, because it's sort of a prerequisite, because we'll be building on some techniques and some ideologies and some theories that we started in the smaller workshops. But I think it's going to be a great time. If you want any information on any of these upcoming workshops or where you can find me, send me an email to mdabinga@muadiunlimited.com, or you can Facebook me on my Live by Design page, and I will be sure to get back to you. So until next time, I'm wishing you peace, I'm wishing you love, I'm wishing you joy. My hope, my prayer for you is that you take time today to tune out from the outside world, tune in internally, and celebrate the beauty, the divine, and the grace that is within you. Because once you start to really understand and really live to the full knowledge of who you really are at your core, you will be amazed by the transformations that come into your life. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourselves and others, and I'll see you very soon.